I'm back. Welcome. Sorry about the pause, but I'm here. And my last couple of lives or whatever of how it's not shocking when people, white people, assume that Bill Cosby is guilty. And the statement may be perceived as having racial or racist, not racist, but racial undertones, and white folks having that opinion. It's definitely racial, but it's quite simple, honestly, man. People tend to give those who are not perceived as their family less of the benefit of the doubt than people who are. It's really, really that simple, you know. People tend to stick to their kind and give their own more chances or believe their own than others. That's just how it is. That's how it naturally is. Is that right? I mean, if we're all about justice and objectivity and just not hearsay without proof, and the burden of proof is always on the person that's accusing, not the accuser. That's how justice works in America. I mean, you wouldn't think that, though. You know, they say innocent until proven guilty, yet somebody can accuse you of some shit and they throw you in prison. So you're still low-key being punished for accusation. And then a lot of times, more times than not, especially if you're a black person, and depending on the level of accusations, okay, it's too bright, I can't do this. Depending on the level of accusations, even if you're exonerated, straight up not guilty, they'll still hold that over your head for the rest of your life just because somebody accused you of doing some shit. And that's one of the most disheartening things about this society, man. It's like, not only are we not forgiving, or not only is this culture have become like a non-forgiving culture, but simply being accused of something is enough to stain you for the rest of your life, even if you've been completely exonerated. I'll give you a prime example. Nate Parker, who a few years back, about 5 years ago, he did the movie about Nat Turner. And as soon as he did that flick, or as soon as the moment he was promoting that particular film, people started digging up his past about sexual assault allegations that he had in the in 1999. I don't know the full details of it, but if I'm not mistaken, he was completely exonerated. He was never convicted. And yet it was still brought up. But in this situation, in that particular situation, it was black women going hard, saying that he raped these women and this and that. And it's just like, how could you go around and how could you throw around like such accusations, but you have no proof or minimal proof? Like, aren't we supposed to really label people after it's a solid conviction? I don't know. But anyway, man, that's just the way this country is run. It's mob justice. And like the latest or one of the latest episodes of Joe Rogan, I barely watch it anymore because it's on Spotify, even though I catch clips and stuff like that on YouTube, and I do have Spotify, but it's just not a platform that I really use that much. But anyway, I forget who the guest was on, but they were talking about the Bill Cosby being released and how crazy it was. And they jokingly said, I forget what the guest said, but I forget who the guest was, but he jokingly said, get Bill Cosby on for an interview. He's like, yeah. Joe Rogan's like, yeah, why don't I just do that? I couldn't do that. I have daughters, man. He raped 60 women. How was that not slander? 60 people accused him of different things. Some accused of rape, some inappropriate touching. It wasn't even the same thing across the board. I think the one that actually was brought to court in 2004, the shit was thrown out just because there wasn't enough evidence. It was too dicey. There was a civil case. He wound up settling in the civil case, paying out $3.8 million, and he made certain statements that could have been alleged as being potentially incriminating for a criminal case. But he made said statements under the agreement that should a future criminal case come up with that particular individual, that those statements wouldn't be used against him. And the statement was, he just gave the lady pills. He didn't say he gave them pills without them knowing. He didn't say he gave them pills so he can get them high and had sex with them. He did say, oh yeah, I gave them pills with the intent to have sex. But it's just like, dudes, women and men, they go out and they have drinks together just to have sex. I've known of women who say they prefer, I'm not saying it's right, but they say they prefer to be a little bit tipsy or a little bit nice when they have sex. I'm not saying that's the right thing. I'm just saying this is how a lot of people move and think and operate. Have thought in the past this way, operated this way in the past, whether it was a sexual revolution in the 70s or 60s and the 70s, and then, you know, the crack epidemic in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? The point I'm trying to make is he never said, yo, I gave these pills without them knowing and I raped these hoes. He didn't say anything like that. Not once did he say he forcibly or without them knowing had sex with them. Oh yeah. But he never made a statement like, yo, like some people say, oh, see right there, he just incriminated himself. Never once did he say, yo, I use these drugs to rape these people. But anyway, long story short, man, nothing was proven in the court. You would think, if it was that much evidence and that many people that said so much against him, surely one of them could have got him on his rape allegations. All of them didn't say he raped them, by the way, and a lot of them had like a similar story, and they all were pretty much represented by the same person. So everything was in the sketch. But anyway, I don't want to get into the details of whether I think he's guilty or whether I think he's innocent. I think with the things that are presented, to me, it's not enough to convict him. You know, everything is dicey. People bringing up stuff 30, 40, 50 years later. He has supposedly got away with serial rape of white women in the 60s. Like, white women was afraid to tell on him, a person that was actually doing stuff, but not afraid to tell on like Emmett Till. Not afraid to railroad Reuben Carter. Not afraid to railroad Muhammad Ali. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And then some people, they'll say, well, so many people said he did this. He must have did something wrong. Just because a whole bunch of people say something, that doesn't necessarily make it true. There's this thing, I don't know, but there's this thing called conspiracy. There's this thing where a whole bunch of people are in on something in order to take someone or something, some group, some organization down. That does exist. There was a point in time where Adolf Hitler convinced a whole bunch of Germans, millions of Germans, that millions of Jews were the cause of all of their problems, and that they were lesser people, and that they were like, if you watch the movie Inglourious Basterds, where he gives the reason and the rationale why the Germans don't like the Jews, and he was like some high Nazi leader or whatever. He was just like, no reason in particular. They're just, what did he say? He said they're just like rats. They're like vermin. You know what I'm saying? And just so, because a whole bunch of German people believe that, does that mean that the Jews were rats and vermin? No. Just because, and these are millions of people that share this idea. There was one point in time when millions upon millions of Americans really believed that African Americans and Americans of African descent were fucking monkeys. Three-fifths of a human being. Millions of people believe that. Millions of them to this day still believe that they are superior to black folks. Does that mean that it's true? No. A whole bunch of people corroborating a story doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. Because not only do you need like corroboration or eyewitness testimony, but you need hardcore evidence. You need receipts. You need timestamps. You need DNA. You need toxicology reports. There's all kinds of things you need, not just people just saying shit. That's why evidence is presented in court beyond just what a person is saying. But for him to be like, he raped so many women, he raped 60 women with no proof, just shady words from a lot of shady women in Hollywood, a lot of people that's in Hollywood that don't quite make it. I'm sorry, they're shady. Now, and I've said this before, the fact that he was married and getting his womanizing on, and obviously his wife had to know. There's no way he fucking hoes and his wife don't know, right? But if he was having sex with a lot of these women and giving false pretenses and, you know, making them think that him sleeping with them would help advance their careers, and him sleeping with them would help them, like, put them in better positions in Hollywood, and he didn't follow through. Well, it's wrong to, like, accuse a person of rape because you didn't follow through on some type of monetary or some type of career advancement. When lying and deceit is your foundation, when lying and deceit is the foundation for you scoring some vagina or just having sex in general, you run the risk of having some sordid backlash, and I believe ultimately that's what happened with Bill Cosby. And on top of that, he alienated a large portion of the black community, so when things went down and he was in a position where he needed his black family, a lot of black people cast him off too, you know? A lot of black folks didn't support it, but a lot of black people still do, because ultimately, even if Bill Cosby is an asshole, condescending uncle, ultimately anybody with half a brain that looks at this entire situation from a purely legal and logical standpoint, and not just on some emotional, I have a mother, I have daughters, I have sisters. Yes, we want our mothers and daughters and sisters protected, but at the same time, we want our fathers, uncles, and brothers protected from false allegations as well. And if my mother or my daughter or my sister is on some bullshit, lying on somebody, I'm not going to co-sign it. I'm not going to say I'm a condemner. I'll leave that to somebody else to do it. But I'm not going to co-sign it and pretend like she's a victim. In actuality, she's an opportunist. Until I see, like, further, harder evidence, this is just opportunism to me at its finest. But I can understand why a lot of white people condemn and convict Cosby, and they will on national platforms, $100 million platforms, will say something slick like Bill Cosby, like, on some real shit. I fucks with Joe Rogan and his comedy, you know what I mean? And I fucks with Joe Rogan. I do. Like the comedic side and, you know, the podcast side. But to say something like he raped 60 women with no convictions, with no hard evidence, with no trial. Even the shit he was on trial for wasn't rape. It was a sexual assault, allegedly touching the privates while she was unconscious. And that shit was overturned by the highest court in Pennsylvania. So what Joe Rogan did was just blatant fucking slander, man, on his platform. He could say allegedly, like he was allegedly, or he was accused of rape by 60 people. Now, I can understand that, you know what I mean? Even if they kind of bullshit, but, you know, you got daughters and things of that nature, and somebody's accused of these egregious acts by 60 different people from 50 years ago. I could understand you wanting to distance yourself from that individual, but to be so matter of fact, as if you were in the actual room, Like, nobody really knows what happens except for those that were in the room. I think even some of the people that allegedly accused him for whatever he did to them, some of them were starting to retract their statements. Times and dates were starting like not to match up. The drug change, they went from, how to go from Quaaludes to antihistamines. So people, not the people like Benadryl, really. Quaaludes went off the market in '83, so he had some pills and somehow kept them fresh for 30 years. Really? But I can understand why white people condemn him. Because in the back of a lot of white folks, not all white folks, but in the back of their minds, we are evil and we are wrong. White people have the same biases towards blacks that Germans, and not all, but I'm just saying a large portion of white folks have the same types of xenophobia and predilections towards black folks and predispositions that Germans had toward Jews. There's no real logic, there's no real basis. They see a few blacks, you know, or a small portion of our society that's just on some thought shit or on some thug shit or what have you, just debased in general. And then they take that as that's how we all are. And if any of us are accused of anything, yes, we did it. If any of us are accused of anything, yup, we did it. It's the home field advantage, man. It's the home court advantage. That's exactly what that is. It's like when Michael Jordan was at the United Center playing basketball against the New York Knicks, and Patrick Ewing allegedly fouls him but doesn't touch him at all. The referees are automatically going to assume that Patrick Ewing fouled Michael Jordan. Why? Because it happened at the United Center, away from his home. Home field advantage is going to get the majority of the calls in their favor. Home field advantage will believe all calls, all negative calls against the opposition, the quote-unquote opposition. That's just what it is in a nutshell, man. So I can understand it, but when it's our own black people holding a crusade against Cosby, and I've already talked about this in like the last two videos, but I don't want to rehash it. It's like we don't need to do that to condemn our own, man, especially when we don't really know. Especially when we don't fully know, we're just going purely off of emotion, and we're just upset because of the pound cake speech that Bill Cosby made like 10 or 15 years ago. And we're helping like white supremacists and white racists do their bidding. It's unfortunate, man. I don't support Bill Cosby. I just support logic and truth. And if you don't have the proof within a reasonable doubt, I'm not going to take this stance saying that he did it. A strong, adamant stance. And I didn't take a strong, adamant stance saying that he didn't do it. I said the evidence, there's not enough evidence for me to believe that he did it. And I said I doubt that. I don't think he did it. I gave a scenario, or I gave a hypothetical of what I think what was happening based on the evidence and the facts that I have, based on the information that I have in front of me. But even with that, I'm not going on this. I never went on a crusade talking about, yo, free Bill Cosby, fuck this shit, man. They lying, these bitches. I didn't say nothing like that. I just said, yo, this seemed fishy. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I need a little bit more than this. Especially like when you really dig deep, when you go into the rabbit hole and you see all the things that connect, and all the opportunistic lawyers and things of that nature, winning positions of power. When you see that the state attorney, the original state attorney that was used against Bill Cosby, dropped the charges, rather. And then like the new state attorney that beat out the former state attorney was going to make his whole like crusade, his life's work, against taking Bill Cosby down, and they got commercials, part of his campaign, I'm going to take down Bill Cosby. When you look at all that shit, an opportunist like that, man, they're going to do things and construe things and manipulate things in their favor in order to complete the task that they said they're going to do. But even then, I still don't say he's guilty or he's innocent. I'm just saying it's not looking good on the part of the prosecution. No fucking way. And then when you couple that with the drug users of the 70s and the 60s, the opportunistic, well, women trying to break into Hollywood by any means necessary, the casting couch is a real thing, man. When I combine all that shit together, it tells me, man, unless you got some real strong hard evidence and not all this circumstantial and opportunistic shit, man, nah, man. I can't on my platform. My platform is small, but I can't on my platform say, yo, he raped all those women. No. And I'm not saying that shit, especially if I'm a multi-millionaire. I'm not saying no shit like that unless I have hard evidence and I have a conviction. And even the thing he was convicted for was not rape. But they took that shit, that was on some OJ shit, like when OJ got put in prison for 10 years for robbery years later. That was some makeup shit because they botched up the original case to get him to convict him of murder. So they just wanted to get him for something. The same thing with Cosby. They couldn't get him on anything else because it was all bullshit. And how they got him on the Andrea Constand shit, it still baffles me, but it was overturned. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I understand why. I totally understand why white people think he's guilty. Because in most white folks' eyes, niggas is guilty whenever we're accused of some shit. And if you're not a white person that's like that, then this doesn't apply to you. But if you are, I'm not even mad. I understand exactly why you think the way you think. It is what it is. Home field advantage. If it was a white guy in my house of all black people and some shit went missing, I'm gonna probably think the white person did it before I think my family did it. That's just how it is. That's just how it is. That's how human beings are in general. It's not a surprise to me, though. But to take such harsh, and this is to white folks, not just black folks, but to take such a strong, adamant, harsh stance as if you were actually there, as if you were actually in the room, with no proof, no evidence, man, that's a mob mentality, man. That's mob justice. That's not justice, yo. That's the same tactics that they used to round up the Jews. That's the same tactics they used up to round up slaves. Treating motherfuckers like subhumans, man. We have a judicial system in place for a purpose. Because if this is the case, then anybody could just accuse anybody of anything, and as long as they're convincing enough and are able to play on our emotions and our heartstrings, it's going to be pure. It's already chaotic, but it's going to be even more chaos. Anarchistic almost, you know? You can just accuse anybody and they're going to lock you up. They're going to give you this ridiculous ass bond. You innocent until proven guilty, but you got a $3 million bond. Now, I know some charges like, you know, murder, capital murder and stuff like that. If you potentially did some crazy ass shit like that, then, you know, it serves as a purpose to protect you from the public. So I get that. But even then, you're still kind of guilty until proven innocent. It just makes no sense. But I get it. Every time I see these white people, I don't even think they're racist when I see this shit. I just be like, yeah, it makes sense. You are. You're being led by color, and you're being led by your emotions. You're not looking at the logic of it. You just hear somebody say some shit, and it's lit. If you weren't there to see it, you're literally mad at somebody based on a complex, a figment of your imagination, something that you created inside your mind. You don't have 100% proof that whatever it is that is alleged is true. You just run with the shit because that motherfucker's skin is darker than yours, or that motherfucker's skin is lighter than yours, or that motherfucker said some shit to try to correct a group of people, and you happen to fit into the categories of who he was trying to correct, and that made you feel bad about yourself. Totally get it, man. That's all I had to say. I'll holler at y'all. # everybody need more green. Peace.